gentlemen, if you could just take a seat, please. Thank you. I want to say thank you very much for attending the first Social Science Speaker Series presentation of the year, well, of the new year. And I'd like to call on Dr. Dave Challen to introduce our speaker.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that applause was for Dr. Amanda Zavitz, but thank you anyway. It is a pleasure to stand before you and see such an excellent gathering today. I really appreciate this, as I'm sure all of us do in the social sciences. It's a pleasure to, very briefly, because I know Scott needs all the time he has to present his fine thoughts, but very briefly to introduce Dr. Scott Veenvliet, one of our colleagues as well. I had said to Scott the other day when we were chatting very briefly that I thought he was quite brave to be doing this. Not just speaking about religion, but standing before you. This is not an easy thing to do, and present one's thoughts and beliefs and that type of thing. And Scott, kudos to you in doing this.
I'm going to suggest that religion has made this world a better place, both in the average person's life and in general for society. I'm going to speak to this as a psychologist, as this is my area of expertise. I'll start by investigating first some cognitive biases that tell us why we might make some mistakes about our perceptions about religion. Then I'll demonstrate how religion is pro-science, how it is good for your health, how it is good for your overall happiness, and then I'll try to explain why religion makes people better people. Alright, hopefully I'll finish this in around 40 minutes, and so it'll leave us time for some questions at the end, because no talk about religion should end without questions. In the age of virulent anti-religionists such as Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins, stating that religion makes the world a better place may be a surprising thesis. How can I suggest this with tensions rising again in Northern Ireland, with the ongoing strife in the Middle East, with the shadow of September 11th looming over our collective consciousness? And this is just in the recent past. What about historic Islamic jihads, the witch trials, the Inquisition, and the Crusades? Wouldn't it be easier to argue the opposite? Perhaps, but I know you're a very discerning audience and you wouldn't let me get off so easily, so I decided to take perhaps the harder road. Now I'm just going to ask, does anyone here have a Lotto Max ticket on them? Do you have it on you right now? Can you hold it up? Alright, Lotto Max. And what's your name? Amanda. Amanda has a Lotto Max ticket. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions, and this is for everyone. Do you think Amanda is more likely in her lifetime to die in a shark attack, to be killed by a falling airplane part, or to win the grand prize with that Lotto Max ticket? What do you think? Shark attack? Now, this is, what I'm trying to do here is demonstrate something that we call cognitive biases. We sometimes construe our understanding in the world in a way that may not be based on accuracy, but it's based on something that serves us a temporary purpose. The first cognitive bias I'll tell you about is called the availability heuristic. The availability heuristic states that images and stories that are easily come to mind are believed as being more common. And so things that are vivid and shocking are easily remembered. And if you remember it easily, you convince yourself it must happen more often. Thus, it is the case that you, in your lifetime, are 3 times more likely to die by being hit by a falling airplane part than you are winning the Lotto Max with any given ticket. Also, you are 30 times more likely to be killed by a falling airplane part than you are to be killed by a shark. So why do we make this cognitive error? Again, things that come to mind easily are believed as being more frequent. And why do shark attacks come to mind more easily? Well, it's because they have those sharp, big, pointy teeth. There's an evolutionary leftover that says we need to pay attention to these dangers. And until they start putting sharp, pointy teeth on things that are much more likely to kill us, such as airplanes and cars and fast food containers, we're going to have more adrenaline pumped into our system whenever we see the image of that big shark, more so than when we see the image of a vehicle. Alright, second of all, we have a biased presentation of things that happen in the world. The Lottery Corporation purposefully parades around the big winners. Imagine, however, if they published a big book that was filled of the millions and millions of people who did not win the lottery week after week. This obviously doesn't happen. They want to tell us about the big winners. And so we may also be making some of these cognitive biases, these errors, when we talk about religion. The atrocities that have been and are still committed today in the name of religion are terrible. However, they are a small portion of the day-to-day experiences of the billions who have religious faith, and a faith that makes their lives relatively better. We may call to mind easily the devastation because this is what serves us in the short term. And it is what is frequently reported in the media. But it may in fact be a false assessment of the average person here on earth. The second cognitive bias has to do with social categorization. Do these people all look the same to you? Social psychologists have documented that when we make judgments about people who belong to a different social group than we do, we tend to gloss over individual differences. Right? And this even happens for judging facial features. This is called the outgroup homogeneity effect. The outgroup homogeneity effect states exactly this. When you judge, individuals, you look at what is common and judge them all according to that common characteristic and ignore those individual differences. So I'm going to show you another group of individuals. Do these people all look the same to you? What's their one common characteristic? They're religious. All right? However, if you perceive these individuals as the same, you may in fact be committing the outgroup homogeneity effect, that one category says that they are all the same, when in fact there is vast differences between these individuals. Vast differences. All right. I know there's a beard between these two guys, but there is no other similarities. So when all anti-religionists state that all religions are dangerous, they are committing an easily made cognitive error, that outgroup members are more similar than they probably are. Okay, so I've outlined two cognitive biases that set us up to be anti-religion. You may ask, well, why would I want to change these biases? They seem to be serving me well. Well, if you're okay with knowing that your beliefs are irrational, nothing much else I say today will make a difference. However, if you want an accurate view of the world, perhaps some of the things I'm about to say may cause you to think. Religion and science. Anti-religionists have often stated that religion suggests that we should remain ignorant about the world. You can find some evidence for this in our shared history, in our Christian past, and some Islamic groups. However, let us again resist the tendency to overestimate these things and paint everyone with the same brush. There is strong evidence that in our current mindset, based on the scientific method, was championed by those who were quite religious indeed. Many key names in science were individuals inspired by their faith in God and their desire to study God's ordered universe. They were fascinated by the world around them, and they used their fascination or their faith in God to inspire their investigation of that fascination. We have Francis Bacon, who is known widely as the father of empiricism or empirical thought. Galileo was an astronomer and a physicist. These individuals are all religious individuals. Johannes Kepler, a mathematician and an astronomer. Blaise Pascal, a mathematician, physicist, and philosopher. Isaac Newton, Newtonian physics is still taught, at least that's my assumption. Is that correct, Peter?
Yes.
Newton? No. And the first person to document the working knowledge of genetics was a little-known European monk called Gregor Mendel. These are some of the historical figures, but there are many scientists today that consider themselves religious and allow that to inspire their work as well. Dr. Francis Collins, who is the lead researcher on the Human Genome Project, says this: "I am a scientist and a believer and find no conflict between these worldviews. As the director of the Human Genome Project, I've led a consortium of scientists to read out the 3.1 billion letters of the human genome, our own DNA instruction booklet. As a believer, I see DNA, the information molecule of all living things, as God's language, and the elegance and complexity of our own bodies and the rest of nature as a reflection of God's plan." Darn, I didn't hit the click. There it is right there. I'll let you mull over that before I continue on. All right, so these scientists had, and many still have, a strong faith in God and relied on that faith to guide their academic studies. History also teaches that Christendom strongly supported the foundation of higher education in the Middle Ages that has continued to exist in our world today. Even when not directly chartered by the Pope, many universities were founded by individuals who had the desire to study the world they thought God had created. If we look at the models of some high-profile and some local institutions, we can see how the religious mindset guided the founding fathers. So we have Oxford, Dominus Illuminato Mea, also means the Lord is my light. Cambridge, Hinc lucem et porcula sacra. I'm not a Latin scholar, so forgive me if my Latin is not perfect, but they say, here we receive light and sacred draught. Now, I think modern students at Cambridge say that sacred draught is beer, but originally it meant that wisdom was the sacred draught that they were seeking. Princeton translates to under God's power she flourishes. McMaster, showing their Protestant roots, is one of the only universities to have a Greek rather than a Latin motto, and their motto says, in Christ all things hold together. UWO was founded by an Anglican bishop, and it started as a theological school, and Huron is part of those roots. And so their motto, Veritas et Utilitas, means truth and usefulness. So the bottom line is, religious faith does not shut down intellectual curiosity. By necessity, it does not shut down intellectual curiosity. In many cases, it piques it. So let's talk about religion and health. How many people here at some point in their life have been helped by a hospital or a doctor? All right. Over the centuries, especially during the years that illness was seen as a supernatural affliction, the care for the sick and dying fell to the religious leaders of the community. Major religions teach care for the sick and needy, and many of the early hospitals were founded by religious orders. In fact, even today, many of the outcasts of society, such as leprosy patients, it is only the religious who devote their time to helping these individuals. As I gave you a list of scientists earlier who were religious, I could also do so for health individuals who were religious, who were inspired by their desire to help people become more healthy. Maimonides is a 12th century Jewish philosopher and also a renowned physician. Michael Servetus, a 16th century physician who was the first person to describe pulmonary circulation, was also a theologian. And we have Al-Kindis, who is a 9th century doctor, pharmacologist, psychologist, and Islamic philosopher. He introduced groundbreaking pharmacological work, and he believed, stating, there is no disease that Allah has created, except also that He had created its treatment. So they were inspired by the world they lived in and inspired to help people live healthier lives. Now, recently, healthcare and religious faith has diverged. Many treat the ill with little or no faith in a higher power. However, there's an odd finding that does not seem to go away, which is that religious people are healthier and live longer than non-religious people. This may help to explain the recent trend for spirituality that is creeping back into medical schools in the United States. In 1992, there was only 5 schools who offered courses in terms of faith and healthcare. In spirituality and health. That is the right term there, spirituality and health. In 2005, this number had increased up to 101 different schools in the United States who are now offering courses in spirituality and health. They are recognizing the two are linked together very intimately. Duke University and their medical school has opened up a center for spirituality, theology, and health as well.